Hey, y'all, and welcome back to Southern Fried, a soul-grown podcast, the show that explores the South through its people. This week, we have a great guest, author Paul Attaway. Paul's based out of South Carolina. He grew up in Georgia, but he spent 30 years of his life out west in Arizona. So Paul and I sit down and we talk about how growing up in Georgia and now living in South Carolina have influenced his writings, how his time out west in Arizona was a little different than living in Georgia or in South Carolina, and how he found his way back to the South after 30 years away. It's a great conversation. We not only talk about his writing, but we get into who he is as a person, and I enjoy just getting down and talking with Paul. So, I hope y'all enjoy this conversation. Make sure to go check out his books when you are done listening to this episode. Go support him, and thank you for listening to Southern Fried. Now, let's get to the show. All right, Paul, thanks for joining us on Southern Fried today. So glad to get to sit down and talk with you.
Oh, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Look, where are we? We're going to get a little bit into like your life, your background a little bit, because I'm interested to hear it. But where are we catching you right now? Where, I love this backdrop behind you. If anybody's watching the show, great little map, I think, behind you. Where are we catching you?
It is. Well, right now I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and this map behind me is a map of the Charleston Peninsula. But one of the things that makes it interesting is, I think it was done. Let's see if I can find the date. My eyes aren't what they used to be, but it was based in 18th century quality map. It's a reprint.
No way.
It's not an original, but so yes, we live on the southern end of the peninsula, down in the historic section, and we've been living here now for 6 years. Been visiting for six. Well, we've been visiting since 2010. We moved here permanently in 2020.
I got to be honest. Never a place I've been, but always have wanted to get down, like, I guess up there from where I am. But just hear that it's an awesome place to visit and be in.
It's very unique. It's for a variety of reasons. Probably the premier reason is simply the preservation. We live in the neighborhood where we live. Actually, the entire peninsula is governed by a zoning ordinance that dates back to 1931 that prohibits you from tearing your home down. And so when you repair your house, you have to take it back to make it look the way it looked when it was first built. So you walk through neighborhoods and every single house has that original structure. Now, you can add additions to the back and do things such as that. So we have homes here dating back to the first half of the 18th century. So that's really what differentiates this city from any other city that you're going to find in the country. Then when it the history, we have colonial era, Revolutionary War era, and of course the Civil War started here. So we're loaded with history.
I was a history major in college, so I like going to Charleston just seems like I personally would have a blast and kind of geek out over everything to look at there.
And if you do make the trip, reach out, because when I'm not writing books, I give walking history tours.
Oh, awesome.
Give about 4 tours a week for folks who are here visiting. And we have a great 2-hour walking conversation about the history of Charleston and the role it played in our nation's, earliest days. So it is a fascinating city.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to go on my Google Calendar right after this, find a date, and my wife's going to be like, why do we have a Charleston trip planned? And I'm just trust me, all right?
That's right.
We're going to be in Paul's hands.
Right. She will love it.
Good. Well, okay, in Charleston now, but I know that, and you even said it hasn't been, where you've been forever. Right. So take us down a little bit of your path in your life and tell us a little bit about where you're from. Where do you consider that, where you're from?
Well, I'm from Atlanta, born in Atlanta, and then at about the age of 6 or so, mom and dad moved to Marietta, Georgia. Okay. So we grew up there. And really enjoyed that experience. For college, I went off to college. I went up to DC, went to Georgetown University. That's where I met my wife.
Wow.
She's in California. And after college, I went back to Georgia and I went to the University of Georgia and got a law degree. And then so then Len and I were, engaged at the time when I graduated and had to figure out, where we're gonna live, and
Yeah.
got married the summer after law school, and we decided to set up shop in Phoenix, Arizona. So that
Ooh.
was 1988. So moved to Phoenix, but I was in law school for 3 years, which is typical, but I was only a lawyer for 2 years, which is not typical.
less
So,
less time as a lawyer than actually trained to be
yes.
one.
And I enjoyed law school, but I didn't enjoy being a lawyer. It wasn't for me. So, I said, "That's it. I'm not gonna be a lawyer anymore." And I moved into the business world after that.
Well, I got to give you some respect. I feel like a lot of Marietta people would just say Atlanta, but you're sitting here and you're drawing a line in the sand that there is
Yeah.
you moved to Marietta.
Well, that's because you're from the South, and it is one of these things people say, "Where are you from?" And then I'd say, "Well, I was born in Atlanta." And I technically was born in Atlanta,
Yeah,
moved to Marietta, but which is where I spent the formative years. But if I'm talking to somebody who's from Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, or Florida, even, I'll
sure.
say, I was raised in Marietta, and they understand that. It's the same thing people say, where did you raise your kids? And I'll say, Phoenix. But while we were there, we lived in Phoenix, and then we moved about 5 miles away to a town called Paradise Valley, and
Okay.
then when the kids all left, we moved to Scottsdale, but we were always within about a 5-mile circumference of where we lived, but it's
Yeah.
just, it's all right together. So I just say I'm from, we raised our kids in Phoenix.
Yeah.
Technically, we raised them in Paradise Valley, but who wants to know that? So
Yeah,
anyway.
sure, sure.
Yeah, so I
That's like
try to
if,
be granular when the person I know will get what I'm talking about.
yeah, yeah, because I'm from a Birmingham suburb, but if I'm meeting somebody from around, I'm just Birmingham. Let's just,
Yeah, right.
you don't have to do the whole thing with them. Um, well, I am interested. You grew up in Georgia, law school there, school in DC, which, I think probably many years ago people would call the South, but now I think we probably draw the line a little below DC.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, technically, the Mason-Dixon line was right there.
yeah.
Yeah, and the colors for Georgetown University were selected as blue and gray for a
Oh
reason,
wow.
and that was because of the Union forces and the Confederate forces. The idea was that we were gonna,
Huh.
you know, get rid of that distinction and
Huh.
unify. So that's why the Georgetown colors are blue and gray.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so then though you're like, let's go to Arizona. What pulled you out west to go do life out there? Was it the wife's California influence kind of pulled you that way?
I think there's no doubt there's some truth to that.
Yeah.
The old saying is that when your daughter gets married, you gain a son-in-law. When your son gets married, you lose a son. Um, so yes, my wife was from California. She's from Los Angeles. I didn't want to live in LA. I had job offers in both Atlanta and in Phoenix. Had a really good friend from college who was from Connecticut and was very East Coast.
Okay.
He made the move to Phoenix, and he loved it, and he sang the city's praises. So I clerked the summer after my second year of law school, part-time in Phoenix and part of the summer in Atlanta. I had offers from each. So Len and I were engaged. We're getting ready to get married. And part of our thinking was that if we lived in Atlanta, it would always be my friends, and then here comes Len with no connection.
Sure. Yeah.
And so that would have created a little bit of a not a insurmountable hurdle, but a reality. So we
Yeah.
said, let's go someplace where neither one of us knows anyone, and let's just start. And the law firm that I received an offer from and that I worked for was, by Phoenix standards, a large firm. We had about 150 attorneys, and
Okay.
our incoming class of attorneys was about maybe 20, 25 people. So right away, we met, you know, 25 or so people,
Yeah.
roughly our age. And so that had a lot to do with it. Phoenix was and still is growing. And it's when you start having kids and you need parental help. The mother's parents tend to, it's not that my parents would not have been helpful. They certainly would have been, but it's the mothers always seem to want to have their mother close by.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So that's how we ended up in Phoenix.
Well, I'm always so interested when I talk to guests who, it's Southern Fried, so we all have connections to the South. But I've talked to people who are maybe from different places or have moved away and live there now. So when you grew up, I mean, a Southern guy,
Yep.
Atlanta, you're a Georgia guy. Was moving to Arizona kind of different? Like, were there things that you realized, man, it's like that's not the way
This
we
is
did it?
different.
Not good or bad, but was there any
Yeah.
differences there?
Um, there are differences, but I'll give you a simple, stupid one.
Okay,
It's
yeah,
Well, okay, it's not stupid maybe, but it's just like football.
yeah,
Uh, College football in the Southeast is a whole different level of passion.
sure,
Uh, Football on Sundays out west comes on at 10 in the morning.
yeah,
Well, I'm still in church at 10 in the morning. So, I
yeah,
mean, some of those are sort of more clock-driven differences.
yeah,
But I don't think there was not what I would call a shock. When I was in high school, the high school that I went to in Atlanta, well, we had a debate team, and the school supported the debate team. I
okay,
traveled all over the country on the debate team. I spent summers at debate workshops in California and in DC. I had friends all over the map.
yeah,
So I had been exposed to West Coast attitude, Chicago accents, Boston accents, Northeast. I spent, about a month or so in Boston one summer. I'd spend, 6 weeks in California
oh, how
at these
cool,
debate workshops. And so I think that the differences between the regions of our country I was more aware of.
yeah,
And so it wasn't like it was any sort of culture shock. Um, I greatly appreciate the South, and I grew to appreciate it more when I came back to Charleston. Um, 2 of our 3 children went to college in the, Southeast. Our son went
okay,
to Alabama. One of our daughters went to the College of Charleston.
wow,
And I have just a great little story, about our son.
okay,
Great kid. I say kid, he's 31, he's doing very well, but sorry, I called him kid. If you're
yeah,
listening, Clark.
he's your kid,
Yeah,
hey,
it's my
yeah,
kid. So
yeah,
he goes off, he's a freshman at Alabama. Out west, it's really casual, really
yeah,
casual. He wore shorts and flip-flops everywhere. He had a uniform he had to wear at school because it was a private school. Outside of school, the kid owned flip-flops, T-shirts, and shorts. So we send him back to Alabama. He's rushing for fraternities. We're like, "Clark, we need to up your game. We gotta get you
yeah,
some." He's like, "No, mom, no, dad, I got it." I go,
oh, Clark,
"Fine." So we show up for Parents' Weekend early in his freshman year, and he's like, "Would you take me shopping?" You know, we had to get him some khakis and some belts and some Oxford shirts and a
yeah,
blazer, and he joined the fraternity, had a great time. Before you know it, he was saying "Yes, sir" to me instead of "Yeah, dad."
oh, there
You
you
know?
go,
So, anyway, those characteristics of growing up in the South that have not died off,
yeah,
uh, are wonderful, and
yeah.
I think I appreciate them more having returned to the South, having lived away for 30 years.
Well, I think it's funny, it's like you're a kid, you're like, hey, look, I'm telling you, I grew up in Georgia. I know what you need to do to move out there. Like we've
Yeah,
got to get you some polos, man. And he's like,
yeah,
"Nah, Dad, I've got this."
I'm good, and then he kind of figured it out, and now he knows how to dress when he goes to church or goes to work, you know?
As a Georgia Bulldog law grad, do
Right.
you consider yourself a Georgia fan? And did it hurt you to have a son go to Alabama?
No, and the reason is my dad went to Georgia Tech. So
Okay.
he was an engineer grad from Georgia Tech and a very proud Georgia Tech alumni. And when
Yeah.
he was at Georgia Tech, their head coach was Bobby Dodd. And they
Great
were
years.
originally in the SEC. Georgia Tech was originally in the
Yeah.
SEC. You go back far enough. And so I was raised to hate Georgia and to hate Alabama. And so I always joked that my dad would be rolling over in his grave And when I went to Georgia Law School, he would just he'd tell his friends, well, it's only because Georgia Tech doesn't have a law school. That's why I was at Georgia.
Yeah.
So I went to Georgia, went to a few games while I was there. I was pretty busy as a law school student. And then my wife and I, we started going to football games at Alabama. And, my wife is from California. Her parents went to Stanford. Her brothers went to Stanford.
Okay.
And so we're going to go to our first Alabama game. I said, honey, we're going to see an SEC football game. And she goes, "Oh, Paul, don't worry. I've been to loads of football games. I've
Oh
seen,
no.
Notre Dame and UC, USC, all this stuff." I said, honey, Stanford's a fine school. You have no idea what you're about to walk into. And
Yeah.
she did. And she is a huge SEC fan now.
Oh,
So
great.
I don't hate Alabama. I don't hate Georgia. I don't hate um, Georgia Tech for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, I certainly root for Alabama, but overall, I would say we've just become huge SEC fans.
Hey, we need them. We need them. I love being a fan of the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember we went to a couple of SEC championship games, and so it was at the Mercedes Stadium in Atlanta, and it was
Yeah.
Alabama against Georgia, Alabama against Florida. So you got these passionate fan bases, and the place is packed, half of
Yeah.
one fan base, half of the other. And at halftime, the entire stadium is chanting SEC, SEC. It's
Yeah.
great.
It's the
Then they come
best.
back out of the tunnel, and it's back to, rooting for your team.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I love, like there's a lot of times, and there are people who disagree with this opinion, but there's pretty much only one school I won't cheer for in the Southeastern Conference, and that's the University of Mississippi. But that's just for personal
Well, that's
rivalry
like,
reasons. But for
yeah,
the most part, I'm like, yeah, I want us to be the best. Like, I want to
yeah,
be the best conference because
right.
when Mississippi State goes 2-10, well, we lost to the best teams. So, like,
That's true. That's
who
right.
can
Yeah.
blame us?
Yeah, in another conference, you would have gone 5-5 easily. Yeah,
I didn't expect the trash talk there, Paul. That one
yeah,
caught me off guard.
yeah.
So I do want to hear about your you were 2 years as a lawyer, and then
Yep,
you said I'm out of there.
yep,
And you pursued. Correct me if I'm wrong, but you kind of pursued entrepreneur lifestyle, right? Opened up some businesses, sold some
yep,
businesses, and did that for
correct.
30 years.
Yep.
So can you walk us through that a little bit? What led you
Yeah.
down that path?
Well, again, I was not happy being an attorney. I realized doing this as a career was not going to work for me. So
Yeah.
I started looking for a business to buy, and this was back before the internet. So on a Sunday or a Saturday, I forget which one it was, there'd be a huge section in the newspaper, in the business section, of businesses for sale, and you could contact
Wow.
business brokers. And so I'd found this tiny, tiny little business that I could have purchased for no money down, just taking over the man's debt, which should have been a red flag right there. So anyway, I took the financials, I sent them to my father because he had, over the years, had bought a couple of small little companies to absorb into his business.
Yeah.
I said, Dad, what do you think? And he said, what's going on? I paid for law school. And I said, well, I'm miserable. And he says, "Well, come to work for me. You owe me." And so, my father had a business that he had started shortly after he graduated from Georgia Tech, manufacturing building materials. And so I went to work for him. So I worked for him for 5 years,
Okay.
opened up a sheet metal shop in Phoenix, learned to make the products, learned to do takeoffs on buildings, learned to
Wow.
manage a sales rep network. And in the process, met a very, very bright gentleman, and he had ideas on how to engineer buildings to be more uh, uh, structurally sound during earthquakes.
Okay.
Started a division for my father, bought it from my father with his blessings, and went on my way. So I worked for my dad for 5 years, and then from roughly 1990 to roughly 1995, thereabouts.
Yeah.
And then starting in, basically 1996, from 96 through about 2018, I started about three different businesses,
Wow.
and sold them. Um, and Then we became empty nesters, and I'd wrapped up a business, and my wife was really encouraging me, not to start another one because they're all consuming.
Sure.
And I joke it was like the easiest promise I ever had to keep because I was burned out by then,
Yeah.
and we wanted to spend more time in Charleston. And so we purchased a house here in 2014, and we would commute. We'd spend 2 months in Phoenix, 2 weeks in Charleston, back and forth, trying to figure out if we really wanted, what we thought of Charleston. Well, we
Sure.
ended up falling in love with the city. So after I got burned out on being the running, starting and running businesses, so I became a consultant slash executive for hire. I raised money for a few small companies. And I enjoyed some of that work, but again, after you've kind of been your own boss for a while, it's a hard pivot to make, to come in
Yeah.
and see people doing things that maybe differently than you would do. Doesn't mean it was wrong. It was just
Sure.
different. So
Sure.
I did that for a few years. Then I got it into my head that that I could write a book. And so it was sort of like a challenge. I was between consulting gigs. I said, let's see if I can do this.
Yeah.
And so that was around 2018 ish. And that was when I started, toying with the idea of a writing career.
Hey, Southern Fried listeners, just wanted to jump in real quick and say thank you for listening and supporting the show. We get people like Paul on the show because of people like you who like this episode or go download it or leave us a review or follow us on social media, because our reach gets out to people like Paul, and we get to find more people in the South to highlight, to talk about, and to hear their stories and how the South has influenced them. So, big thank y'all for listening to this episode and for supporting the show. We wouldn't be here without our listeners, without you guys. All right, enough of that. We can get back to Paul's interview. Just huge thank you for supporting. Let's get back to the show. So then, was that right when you started, did that end up being book number one, which I believe is Blood in the Lowcountry?
That's correct. Yes, I
Okay.
did. We were here in Charleston, and I did not have a project going on, a consulting project, and I started writing, and so I'm writing, and after a few months, somebody reached out to me in Phoenix, and they said, "Hey, Paul, there's this company, they could use a little help. I think you might be a good fit." So I ended up kind of chickening out on writing the book, and I
Okay.
jumped back into a consulting gig, and I did that, and so I was trying to write and do that. So I was doing them both. I was
Yeah.
doing them, and I got sort of the end of that project, and they wanted and it was like they wanted to keep me on for another project, and the next project I really didn't want to do it, and so I was talking to this other company, and so there were like two other companies I was talking to about coming on for a special project, and neither one of them made me an offer. And I was so glad, because I then decided, if I'm going to write a book, I
Yeah.
need to go all in. And so I said, that's it. I'm going to write this book. And so I went all in, and was able to then finish the book, and I published it in the fall of 2020. And yeah, the book is called Blood in the Lowcountry. So I'm really glad I didn't take the one offer I had, and I'm really
Yeah.
glad the two companies that I was more interested in were not interested in me.
Sure.
Uh, and so yeah, so I finished the first book, and it was a blast writing it.
Well, it's so funny, like how often you hear stories of, I think, I'd like to consult for this company, or I'd like to take this job, or we want to move here, and it doesn't work out, and it always, ends up being something great follows that, right? So like you don't get these consulting
Oftentimes,
jobs, but if you did, who knows? Maybe you wouldn't be 3 books
right.
deep and have these wonderful stories that you're putting down.
Absolutely. No, again, the old adage, if you want to make God laugh, make plans.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
so my plan didn't work out, and I went to a different direction, and never could have anticipated this direction. If you had asked me when I got out of college if I'd be living in Charleston and writing books, I would have said, what? Excuse me? Who are you talking to? No, of course not. It was not what I planned when I was, 22 years old. So,
And so now, you're 3 books deep.
yep,
Blood in the Lowcountry, like you said, first one, but they all kind of follow the same family, right?
correct.
And then Eli's Redemption and Blood Rivalry are the other
Correct.
two.
Yes.
So I don't know. I'm just so interested talking to an author. Like, why write these books? What were the influences for that? How fun is it to sit down and create
Yeah,
characters?
it is fun. Um, I call it story engineering. To I joke that I learned how to read and write in law school,
Yeah.
and I learned how to read critically.
Sure.
And I was on the law review, and I had a mentor, a woman who was a year ahead of me, but had been a professor at the University of Virginia, an English professor. She was an excellent writer, and so I would
Yeah.
turn something in; it'd be 20 pages. By the time we were done, we'd have it down to like 8 pages. So just strip away. So I learned how to write more effectively. Say what you mean what you say.
Yeah.
But story engineering is a totally different skill set. And that was one that I really did take as a challenge. I said, I'm going to write a book. And so I read books on how to write books. I read blogs on how to write blogs and all this stuff. And so you get a lot of advice, and some of it's really good, and some of it you just need to ignore. But some of the
Yeah.
best advice you'll get is write what you know. Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Especially if it's your first book. And so, I knew what it meant to grow up in the South. And then the theme or the subject matter that I wanted to write about was fathers and sons. I
Okay.
felt that was an area that, I could write about. I had a great relationship with my father. He passed way too early. And I like to think that I have a good relationship with my children, my
Yeah.
son and my two daughters. And then, now I'm son-in-laws. So that was the theme. So, I got to writing, and after I'd written for a while, I realized this is really boring. I had this story
Oh,
set in the 70s involving these two brothers and this mother and this father, and it was just like, where is this going? And then I joked that I decided somebody's got to die, So then I killed off a character, and
that
then
ramps it up right there.
story took off. So, the story is basically we have a family, and they are the Atkins family. It's a mother and a father and these two sons. And
Yeah.
the oldest boy is a product of the mother's first failed marriage. The younger boy is their child. And so it's Eli's the older brother, and Walker's the younger brother. And there is a brutal murder that takes place in their community, and it turns the lives of several families upside down. As you can
Yeah.
imagine, that would happen in a small community. And one of the hardest questions I have to answer is, Paul, what are your books about? Because they are suspense thrillers. I don't want to give away what happens. That's
Sure.
part of the story. So, I can't tell you too much, other than I decided to try to figure out when I wrote these characters, I really wanted the reader to understand what makes the characters click. What's their background? What's their story? Why
Yeah.
are they the way they are? And then what is it that they want? What is it that they want more than anything? And
Sure.
then, of course, there's something that's frustrating them, keeping them from getting what they want. You got to flip their lives upside down and see what happens.
Yeah.
And so this is what happens in the first book. The three books, they're all standalone. You can read them. You don't have to read them in, first, second, and third.
Okay.
Uh, but they are the third one that I just released in March, effectively finishes a trilogy, because
Okay.
the ripples, the ramifications of this murder that happens in 1975 um, continued to affect lives all the way up for another 20 years. And so we see how it all plays out. Um, and we've got a new bad guy in all three books, So we have a
Love
bad
it.
guy in the
You
first
got to
book.
have somebody to root against.
Gotta have someone to root against. So we got good bad guys in books, and so the first one is one of these brothers is falsely accused of the murder. This is all on the back cover, and so
Good.
there's the hunt. It's the hunt for the real killer, and when we find out who that killer is, man, it really tears up the community.
Okay.
And then books 2 and 3, Eli's Redemption and Blood Rivalry, really focus in on Eli, obviously, in Eli's Redemption. Uh, and then this third one, Blood Rivalry, really focuses more on Walker. Um, in this new book, Blood Rivalry, we're all the way up to the 1990s. And now he's an adult. He's married, has kids. He's a lawyer in Charleston. And he gets crossways with a very, very powerful family. And through through his representation of a couple of clients, he unearths secrets that this family would prefer remained secrets.
Sure.
Uh, and so there is a a rush, so to speak, to are the secrets going to see the light of day, or are they going to remain buried?
Yeah.
That's where the story kind of takes off.
Well, and I like, you're kind of saying it. I don't want to give away too much, and
Right.
because and we want, I want the audience who's listening to this, I want them to go get a book, go
Yeah.
and read it. But you said in one of your interviews that you feel like the theme of all of these books is the struggle to live your life freely.
Yep.
And that's kind of this thread that continues throughout all these books. And so I think that's interesting to kind of weave that into also your, family traditions, community, like the Southern culture
Yep.
um, that is in all these books. I think that's cool. Like, the struggle to live your life, and then how that also relates to the life you're living. How you can tie that into the South and what you grew up with.
Yeah. So, one of my favorite artists is Jason Isbell.
Love them.
And, oh, he's just
Alabama boy,
tell you
Alabama
what,
boy.
probably seen Jason live maybe a half dozen times.
Yeah.
And he's got a great line, one of his songs. It's, "Are you living the life you chose, or are you living the life that chose you?"
Mm,
And, so the things that can bind us and prevent us from living our lives freely are any number of things. And family expectations, what it is you're expected to do. So
yeah.
it's expectations from others, expectations that you place upon yourself, fear of failure, fear of success. Other here in in the South, the Judeo-Christian ethic is still alive and well, and
Yeah.
so
Very much.
sin can bind you and keep you from living freely.
Yeah.
So, in each of the three books, we are exposed to the things that prevent the characters from being able to live their lives freely.
Yeah.
And there are themes that run through them of redemption and forgiveness, um, that I think are pretty powerful at times. So
You
that
know,
theme does run through all three books.
and you talk about a little, and I know that this is prevalent in other cultures for sure, but you hit like family expectations. In my experience in the South, like not letting people down
Yep.
really is like, I want to make, not just your parents, but your grandparents, like your family, like that's a big part of our culture down here. And so like
It
that
is.
that is a struggle. So I think that's cool that you highlight that in the book, like of how heavy
Yeah.
that can feel sometimes.
Absolutely. I mean, we have, you don't want to embarrass your parents or grandparents. Then, you're carrying forward your family name. And it's kind
Yeah,
of like, I
exactly.
knew
Yeah.
your grandfather, he never would have done this. And then if you go back far enough, you have the whole tradition of, Southern Gothic literature, where, the post Civil War South was incredibly poor,
Yeah.
and sort of the shame that followed a lot of people as they were born in this poverty and wanted to overcome it. Um, in my first book, Blood in the Low Country, we have a character who was born in this utter poverty. And it is her desire to prove to others that she was better than where she came from. And just, of course, all that her mind drove her. This is Eli and Walker's mother, drove her to drive her children to be proof that she was a person of social status. She
Yeah.
had her children became her merit badges, so to speak, and anytime they did anything that did not reflect well in her mind upon her, she'd come down on them. And so you had that
Sure.
shame she was carrying from having been born in utter poverty in the South. Uh, so yeah, we see the bit of that in the first book.
Well, look, if y'all listening haven't already decided to go buy all three, I think Paul's selling them well. So please go support him, because these, you gotta love a southern story with good twists and good.
Yep.
I hate to say you love a good murder, but who doesn't
Yeah.
love to read about a
No,
good murder?
I appreciate that. I think you got to have a good bad guy.
You got to, yeah.
But I want to make it clear to folks who are listening. The word blood in the titles of my books refers as much to family as it does to the fact that there is a murder.
Good.
So blood in the Low Country, blood rivalry. The third book, we have rivalries between two sets of brothers. So the murders that occur, they occur off scene. They're not glamorized. You don't read about them happening. So there's no gratuitous, violence in the
Yeah,
book. And I think that's important that people know that, because you don't want people to have a false expectation or just simply a wrong expectation of what the book is
sure.
about. Yeah.
Sure. As an author, as somebody who does this for writes your own books, are there other authors and other writers that you draw inspiration from that you
Yeah.
have read?
The I'd say inspiration. I'd say it's more. I'm really impressed by what they do, and I
Okay.
really like their books. Um, in terms of, James Lee Burke, great Southern author. Now, his books
Okay.
take place predominantly in the Bayou in Louisiana or in Texas, and he's got some stories that take place up in Montana, but a lot of his books are based in the Bayou.
Yeah.
His wordsmithing is just extraordinary. His characters are great. They are flawed, kind of anti-heroes. They're the anti-hero. I really like him a lot. In terms of a series, just a really great series, Daniel Silva, the books he's written, his primary character is Gabriel Alon, who works for the Mossad. And, he's always
Awesome.
fighting bad guys. And so those books, and I think he's written like 25 of them now. That's a great series. Um, so I mean, I try to read David Baldacci. If you want to
Okay.
read great suspense thrillers, David Baldacci knows how to do a suspense thriller as well as anybody. And so when I kind of want to go, okay, what is a suspense thriller? How does that flow? I'll go and read a David Baldacci book. Another, I mean, Ian McEwan.
Yep.
Unbelievably bright. He doesn't do series. Every book he does is standalone, and he
Mhm.
tackles the subject matter. And I really, really enjoy. I'd say I probably enjoy about 90% of what he's done. Sometimes you read a book and you go, that just missed. At least missed for me. It might be
Sure.
other people might love it, but so those are some people that I like to read when I'm not doing something else.
As a South Carolina native, um, currently, I am interested. You've got these books that are about family rivalries and kind of how that exists in a family. Is there any influence? South Carolina has had some family drama that it has involved some unfortunate deaths.
Yeah, you're talking about
Is
Murdoch. You're talking
the
about the Murdoch.
Murdochs? Is there any Murdoch pool, or do you try and stay away from
No,
that in your
I
writing?
stay away from that. The thing
Okay.
about the Murdoch case, what I always say when people bring it up to me, because I'm, a writer and I go, if I had taken that as a script to a movie producer, they would have said, this is too unrealistic. This could never happen. And it happened. And
Yeah.
so, I hear people are trying to turn it into a movie. What do you mean turn it into a movie? I mean, we lived this thing out. Everyone
Yeah.
saw the documentaries on it. It's almost too late to do the movie.
Sure.
No, that to me it certainly sounds like a John Grisham movie on John Grisham book on steroids.
Sure.
Uh, but family in the South is big. Family in Charleston, I would say, is really big
Yeah.
because we have folks living in this town that have been here for 8, 9, 10 generations.
Wow.
So I don't. I mean, it's really amazing how many people who are living here um, do have ancestors that have been here since, not. I mean, you can meet some people who can trace their ancestors back to the first Brits that arrived here. So
That's incredible.
there are a lot of old families that live here in South Carolina. Now, you might meet people in Richmond, Virginia, who can say the exact same claim, and I wouldn't be surprised. Same thing with
Yeah.
Boston. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But I experience it here, meeting people, um, and getting to know people and finding out that, yeah, they've been here for, 200, 300 years. So,
Yeah, which is absurd. Like when you can be like, actually my family's been here since the country was founded. It's like, oh,
yeah,
okay. All right.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, no, we do have some old families here in Charleston, in
sure.
the Lowcountry. Yeah.
Well, Paul, I've loved getting to talk with you and really have just enjoyed our conversation. I am serious. I do want to get to Charleston now, and I will
Yes,
take you up on that tour.
absolutely.
Again, as a history major, like I will love it. I will love every second of it.
You will.
Um, but I usually kind of wrap up my conversations with my guests with one question. So I'm going to throw that to you. Um, if we were to switch places, for some reason, you
Right.
became the host of Southern Fried and you were like, I've got to get a guest. I want to get somebody on this show. Who do you think would make a good guest for Southern Fried?
Jason Isbell.
Oh, love it. Great answer. Great answer.
Hey, good
Look,
luck.
yeah,
Yeah,
Jason, if
yeah,
you're listening, I don't know, this came across, or if
yeah, yeah.
if
You
one
know,
of your
I
people hear it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm new to your show. I was looking at some of the folks that you've had on, and I
Yeah,
think you've had some great guests. I mean, you got the culture. I'd find a rock star chef. Find one of these chefs that's coming up in Birmingham has got a great food scene.
yeah,
We have a restaurant here called Sorghum and Salt, and
okay,
the chef came from Birmingham and Tuscaloosa. And so, just kind of touching on, people call that the new South and such. I don't know. I think food has been a big part of the South for such a long time
yeah,
that anytime that you want to just sort of stay within the arena of cooking, where you got your inspiration from, et cetera. What do you cook at home? I think that's an area that people are always going to want to hear about.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If you could give that chef back, look, Birmingham's doing good on the food
Yeah.
scene, but I don't want to
Yeah.
just be sending our
Yeah.
chefs other places.
Yeah. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think you guys have definitely created a reputation as being a foodie town, which is
Sure,
fun.
sure, yeah. Well, Paul, thank you for joining me today. I'm glad we got to talk. And if anybody wants to find your books, what are the best way to get them?
Well, paulattaway.com. You can go there and that's a good place to go. But, the books are, available online, anywhere you buy your books online. More and more bookstores are carrying them. So if you have a favorite bookstore, go to your bookstore and tell them that, you'd like them to buy this book and they'll go buy it and they'll sell it to you.
Yeah.
But paulattaway.com is where you can learn about the books and you can buy them at Amazon and any place you buy books online.
Sweet. Well, y'all go do that. And Paul, thank you for joining me.
Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. It was a pleasure meeting you.
You too. Have a good one. Well, that concludes this episode of Southern Fried with Paul Attaway. Go support Paul by purchasing one of his books, checking out his website, paulattaway.com, paulattaway.com. I'm not going to spell Paul for you guys. Y'all can do that. I believe in you. paulattaway.com. Go buy a book. Go support him. He's also got a Substack. Go read some of what he's writing over there and just help support him. If this is your first episode of Southern Fried, go listen to another and then another. Go listen to all the great people that we have talked to as we continue to explore the South through its people. I'm excited where Southern Fried's heading and where we're going to take it. So I appreciate y'all being on this journey with us. As always, thanks for listening, and y'all, come on back.